Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. Happy to have you joining us here, and we are hitting episode number 96. I'm Tom, clean shaven today, so that there will be no abrasion with the microphone as I speak to you. And I'm joined as always by Jim. Jim, how's your shaving situation this morning?
I'm a little scruffy, but I don't have I don't have earbuds and a mic. My mic is actually sitting here next to me, so um, if it starts scratching, I've fallen over, and so that's bad.
So just a note for those that only listen to our podcast. I thought Jim was about to take a sip of his water out of his mic. It looked like a water bottle for a moment. So if you need that visual in your life, I'm going to encourage you to go check out our YouTube channel. And if nothing else, then just for that. But you got two handsome guys as well.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, anything happening in the world of pro? Goodness gracious, it's been a week, and all of a sudden it's been a week. And even more to come, because next week, just kind of forecasting ahead, and we'll talk about this probably at the end too, will be our huge pick'em week. That will be we'll be picking Clash of the Castle. We'll be pitching. We'll be picking. That could have sounded terrible. Worlds Collide, which is
can we not pick Worlds Collide? I'm just so nervous about that already.
I am too, to be perfectly honest. And I haven't seen NXT this week. I've seen like the women's title match that got set and the men's. I still don't know because I haven't seen or read the results. Have you seen NXT?
No, it's in the DVR.
Okay. Yeah, I still don't know. I made a move in our fantasy wrestling league to pick up Wolfgang thinking, oh yeah, they'll put the titles back on an NXT UK team. And now I don't know. Like, that may not have happened on Tuesday. So I'll find out sometime. I just finished Dynamite. So maybe I can get NXT done this weekend. Of course, I'll have Rampage and SmackDown to watch too, because I've been watching SmackDown quite a bit lately. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Worlds Collide, I think we should pick it, but I agree with you. It could be an absolute cluster for one or both of us. That might be the one where the correct way to do it is whoever makes the first pick, the other guy just goes, yeah, that sounds good. Do that.
The likelihood of drawing a name out of a hat for your pick and actually making the pick probably have almost the equal probability of you being right.
Well, I will say I have a pretty good feeling on that men's title unification match. So, and I could be wrong, but yeah, so Worlds Collide and then All Out, which All Out got a bunch of stuff added to it this week.
Don't you love that? Yeah, I know we're gonna close with AEW talk, but yeah, it's like Wednesday night we went from there was 2 matches, I believe, pretty formally set. 3, if you
the casino match had been announced, which still doesn't have any participants. So
yeah, but I don't remember it being on TV. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was last Friday. It was on TV. I know I saw something on Twitter.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, 5 matches in one night, and 6 if you consider the shift in the women's title. So it's like,
well, and the shift in the 6-man.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Which, again, we're gonna do AEW at the end today because we did last week pretty much almost all AEW. So we wanted to talk WWE because honestly, WWE is worthy of conversation at this point. Sometimes we haven't talked about it for a while because there just hasn't been anything, or we feel like all we're gonna do is, complain. And we've done plenty of that over 96 episodes too. But I think I said this last week before sometime on here, Tom, and I think you kind of were in agreement with me. I am more interested in and excited about WWE right now than I have been in years, easily years, many years. I'd have to really kind of look at things and go back and tell you. Probably the last time I was that excited was before I moved here to Nebraska and was able to go to a few more live shows. And maybe I was a little more excited because I was going to see something live and that sort of thing. But watching on TV, I wish I had time to watch all of Raw now. I haven't said that in a long time. I watch all of SmackDown usually now. I haven't done that in a long time, except an episode here or there if it was a big episode or if I knew something was happening, or, on Saturday I saw that, oh, this cool thing, you should go out of your way to see this match or whatever. And even then I might just pick out that segment and watch it that have been called out. How are you feeling? Are you finding that you're watching more WWE. I know you record it because you work from home and you're able to have it on during the day, but I know there were also times where you'd record it but wouldn't actually watch all of it because there were just other things that you would rather do with your time.
Yeah, so I definitely have shifted from, I'm going to use the word apathy. Whether that's the best descriptor or not, I don't know. I've shifted from an attitude of apathy towards the WWE product to, I'm going to call it tempered excitement, but I would say that it's rising quickly above tempered excitement. I will say this, like last week, for example, I had recorded SmackDown and had all intents to watch it. And then our family just had one heck of a weekend. Everyone went back to school Monday earlier this week. And by the time like I hit Monday, watching SmackDown in the context of all of the other moving parts of my life just wasn't going to happen. So I just deleted it, but I heard good things about it. So I was disappointed to have to not watch it. And for me to make that statement, to say I was disappointed to not have the time to watch it, is not something I've said about WWE in a long time. I definitely will say that I am prioritizing Raw. Again, people who listened to us know before, you and I are part of a fantasy wrestling league that we've been facilitating for upwards of 15 years or so now. And the weeks that I score, you and I are the commissioners who, breaking news, hold the curtain back on two spot monkeys. We're the commissioners of the league, so we're responsible for the scoring of the shows, and we take weeks at a time just to help it just not if we're both in the document at the same time, it can be a disaster.
Yes.
So, because I've done that before, I like literally put a bunch of results and hit save, and I go, where did they go? And oh yeah, I was in it too. Oh gosh.
Yeah, that was a good shift we made a couple years back.
Yeah. Yep. So the weeks that I score, I really am more locked in. And I try to get through it a little bit quicker. Weeks that I don't score, like this week as a good example, I am at the main event of Raw, but I have not yet watched the main event. I don't know what happens in the main event. So I hope that doesn't creep in our conversation today because I'd prefer not to be spoiled. But if it does,
remind me what the main event of Raw was.
The main event is Edge's return to Toronto for the first time in over 10 years. He fights Damian Priest. And so I'm at the point on Raw where they've made their intros, or Edge is finishing his intro, so I'm ready to watch that match. So all of that contextual information around the topic, Raw has definitely been, post Vince McMahon, a different level of energy, a different approach, and it's been really clear. I mean, it's hard to if you were to say, okay, watch a show from mid-July and watch a show from mid-August, they're not two of the same. So that's been a unique shift because of the mindset and the creative direction that Triple H has taken things amongst whoever else is involved in it. I don't know all the backstage stuff. So I'm definitely very high on it. Actually, and that as well, even though I'm a little, we talked about the NXT Worlds Collide, NXT UK Worlds Collide thing. I didn't care enough about NXT UK before this happened, so it's kind of like, I was trying to think about this last night because I knew what we were going to kind of be talking about today, and I'm like, yeah, is there ever a good comparison? Like, I wasn't old enough or big enough of a fan when the USFL went away and those guys went to the NFL, right? So like, not that they had a battle of NFL versus USFL first, but I would imagine like if you didn't care enough about the USFL and then they started playing NFL teams, like that's the kind of comparison I'm trying to make to this. I love Tyler Bate as a good example. I think he's an amazing underused talent. But Tyler Bate, Braun Breaker coming up, it'll be great. It'll be great. I have no doubts about that. But like my oomph for it, I'm hoping when I get to NXT this week, I get a little bit more behind that.
Yeah, no, and I agree 100% on the Worlds Collide. I didn't strongly care about it when it happened before. Now this is a little different because NXT UK is going on hiatus after they run through. Well, they're saying after Worlds Collide, but I'd really have to look. I don't think they're going to have all of their taped episodes which lead up to Tyler Bate winning the title which is a little bit weird that they went ahead and just put Tyler Bate on NXT with the UK title, and we don't know that he actually won the tournament yet if you watch UK, which tells me they know that most people don't watch NXT UK, so it didn't matter. I don't think they're going to have those episodes done before Worlds Collide because they're just in the opening round. I think still I haven't scored this week's UK. So with only like 1 week to go before, or 2 shows today or last, try this again, Jim talking, take 2. Yesterday's NXT UK show and next week's before Worlds Collide. I don't think they're going to get there. So I don't know if they're going to burn off those episodes still after Worlds Collide. I would hope so. Let the tournament play out for those who do watch it, even though it's been spoiled for them if they watch. I'm assuming if they watch NXT UK, they probably watch NXT 2.0. I can't believe there's a lot of people who UK is their one. Now, maybe in the UK, there is some people who they watch that and not 2.0. There probably are some people like that. I can't think it's a really big group. But we'll see. But yeah, WWE as a whole, next week is the final UK episode, Annette said. So, Annette, do you know if they gotten to the point where they don't have to burn through things, or
I feel like the semifinals were on this week's TV.
Oh, okay.
So it would make sense that if next week is the final, that would be the finals.
Okay.
Which,
well, yeah,
at least chronologically,
right.
Big words with multi-syllables have been my challenge this week. Oh man, and I used to think I was somewhat articulate.
So well, we know you can say, "Get out here! I'm going to choke you out." But
come on, brother. For the timeline, at least he'll have that belt in real time and in TV time in time for World Collide.
So I'm glad that it did work out. Maybe they knew it worked out that way already, or they made it work out that way. Certainly, they cut some other undercard stuff to get it all in. I don't know, but so Worlds Collide will be the end of NXT UK. NXT Europe is coming next year in 2023, which will broaden things a little bit. As we talked about last week, other than the people they've kind of moved over to 2.0, like Bate and Gallus and Blair Davenport, Miko Satomura, at least in the short term. We'll see how many of these people stay beyond Worlds Collide. Charlie Dempsey, William Regal's son, I know, shows up this week. And some others, I'm sure. The vast majority of the UK roster was released last week. So we'll see if any of them get brought back for NXT Europe next year. Probably if they weren't going to use them in 2.0, probably didn't make a whole lot of sense to keep paying them until next year when they do Europe. So I get the releases. Let them go do whatever. And then if they want to bring them back, they can bring them back. If they want to come back. But WWE main roster proper, I'm there with you. Raw just doesn't get. I watch a little bit of it on Tuesday mornings before I go to work, and then if I get through everything else later in the week, then I come back to it. My problem is by Wednesday morning I want to watch NXT. Thursday morning I definitely want to watch Dynamite. Friday morning I'm still trying to catch up on Dynamite and NXT, or I'm recording this podcast. And then by the weekend, I'm trying, NXT, Dynamite, Rampage, and SmackDown all seem to be higher on my priority list than Raw. And I think some of that, at least as far as SmackDown goes, is a time thing. I can get through that 2-hour show, quicker, obviously, than the 3-hour show. That's how time works. So I do think it's some of that, which is too bad because I know there's been some really good stuff on Raw. I've kept up on Raw. I read the results. I agree with you. I tend to, if I'm scoring our fantasy wrestling league, as you said, then I try to score it as I'm watching it, just put in the next match each time, which makes me pay a little more attention and makes me more likely to want to do that. On the weeks I'm not scoring, a lot of times I'll just read the report quick. If I know that I'm not going to have time. So do you have to go get the dog, Tom?
No, sorry. Lots of traffic on my block this morning. Just checking. Just checking.
The Bobo dog, just making sure everybody knows, don't come here. But
The big news from Monday, minus
Yes.
whatever happened in the main event, because again, I can't see it, so I can't speak to it, was the return of Johnny Gargano, which was pretty sweet, all things considered. How did you feel?
Yeah, I haven't seen that part, but I saw
Oh,
it online. No,
spoiler,
no,
Tom. Sorry, Jim.
no, no, and it wasn't. You didn't spoil it. I long ago spoiled it on social media because again, I know I'm not going to get through all of Raw, so I don't try to avoid spoilers for the most part. If I knew something big was happening, like if they had some big world title match that I actually thought had a chance of, of a title switch, I might try and avoid it and then try and find the time somehow. But yeah, no, I did like that they kind of, it seems like they kind of came back from commercial and then Gargano's music hit. So it wasn't, there's different ways to do returns. We've had like the Karrion Kross way where he comes out and attacks Drew and, puts the hourglass. There we go. That thing. I'm like the time thing. The hourglass. Boy, this is really good that you're listening to a podcast this morning or whenever you listen to this, folks, because the two podcast hosts can't talk. So yay, this will be good.
Hard our words.
Struggling. But put that out and so you've got that, you've got the surprise at the end of a match like Bailey and Dakota and Io, but just the random kind of the music hit and great pop in Toronto for Johnny Gargano. A little bit interesting that they chose to do it in Toronto, and I don't know, when was the contract signed and all of that, but they were in Cleveland just a couple of weeks ago. And
yeah,
he's
would
from
that have
Cleveland.
been too on the nose, right? That's the question
right.
that I wondered.
And maybe they wanted to just be like, yeah, everybody expecting Cleveland, but you didn't expect it in Toronto. And they're right. I wasn't like, I kind of had a feeling he was coming back because the stories have always been that he and Triple H really saw a lot in him, and obviously the way he used him in NXT showed that. And since Triple H has come back, there have been an awful lot of those people who have started to reappear: Dexter Lumis and Karrion Kross, and numerous others. Dakota Kai coming back to the company, Io staying with the company when it looked like she was on her way out. So I expected Gargano back, and I also kind of felt like if he was going to go to AEW, it would have happened by now. Like, so I don't know if maybe there was some conversation behind the scenes of like Triple H and him talking like, hey, there's some stuff going on here. Don't do anything. Like, I think we'll be able to talk soon. Annette put an hourglass emoji in our comments. So yes, the timepiece thingy, everybody knew what I meant. But
could you imagine if someone actually, instead of having like the visual of an hourglass, they actually had a watch instead, and they walked up and they set their watch on the apron,
right?
And, like, you have to go pick up the watch and look at it. Like,
yeah, TikTok. It's digital. It doesn't TikTok. But and I expect I expect more to come back at the rate that he's going with his returns. I expect. I think Bray, Sean Ross Sapp has said he thinks Bray could come back because Bray and Vince didn't get along. It wasn't Bray and Triple H. Braun Strowman maybe. I could care less about that, to be perfectly honest. But Bray, I'd like Bray back. That would be good. I expect with Johnny back, we'll see Candice back at some point too. So yeah, I was super excited to see Johnny back. I love that it looks like his first mini feud, whatever. We'll see how long it lasts. Is going to be with Austin Theory, which I think is good for Theory. There's a little bit of me. I don't think they'll do this. There's a little bit of me that's like, what if Gargano were to win the Money in the Bank briefcase from Theory? That would be cool. But I don't know that they're going to push Gargano that fast, that hard. Maybe. I mean, we don't know. But unless you were actually going to have Gargano beat Roman, which you and I have always talked about, the guy who beats Roman, they need to be somebody who that will make. And Gargano would fit that role. I wouldn't do it too fast, though. If you're going to, like, if there's even a thought of doing that, build Gargano on the main roster. He's never really been on the main roster for a long run. He's had, he had some cups of coffee with Ciampa there. But, which that puts he and Ciampa back on the same roster as well. Interesting. They did enough Gargano versus Ciampa that when it was done, I was ready for it to be done, even though they were always great. It's been long enough now that if you revisited it at some point, I could be interested. Or if you put DIY back together for a run, I could be interested. They would be good challengers for the Usos, although I think we're going somewhere else with the Usos.
I wonder, however, too, and I think we just have to state this: like, if Gargano Ciampa didn't end in the early months of the pandemic, could we have a different taste in our mouth about it? Because
Sure.
wasn't there blow off like
It was like an empty.
Yeah, it was like an empty arena match, but it was like it wasn't called that, but that's what it was. So
Right, it was in an undisclosed location, and yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree, and it's sad that as good as that feud was, they didn't get a chance to have the blow off in front of a crowd that would have been hot as heck. Just was the time we lived in, and it's sad that Drew McIntyre's first world title win was in the Performance Center with absolutely nobody there. Not even the Thunderdome yet. They hadn't gotten to that technology yet. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can lament from 2020, especially and into 21, but that definitely is one of them. Gargano and Ciampa's end wasn't what it could have been. And empty arena wrestling was really hard for me to get into. Thunderdome was a little better with the piped in noise because at least it sounded right, but yeah, that was tough stuff back then. They did the best they could with what they had, I guess, but it was rough. I am loving probably the thing I'm most excited about right now in WWE, and I don't know, I could probably change this answer 2 or 3 times. Is like if you brought something else up, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm really excited about that too, which is cool because again, there's been very little of that over the course of 96 episodes. I would argue that you and I have been doing since 2020. I am most excited about I'm going to call it reboot, for lack of a better word, of Kevin Owens. They're making Kevin Owens mean something again. I mean, this week he came out in his old NXT shirt. It was the NXT Titantron, the music, everything. It was basically NXT Kevin Owens from, except he didn't have the title over his shoulder from when he debuted against John Cena. Loving it. And I'll just go ahead and put a prediction out there. I think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be the team that defeats the Usos for the tag titles. Because I think we're headed towards the Usos attack Zayn, and Owens is the one who makes the save eventually, sometime here. And then I think we go to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos in this setting, the way that Triple H is kind of letting the guys, it seems like, go a little bit more in the ring than we saw in the previous regime. Sign me up. That could be a banger and a half. Sami Zayn is somebody who, I mean, he's incredibly talented in the ring, and he's a great character. But I had grown really weary of the whole conspiracy theory character, and we talked about around WrestleMania, like the Johnny Knoxville stuff just wasn't for me because I'm not a Jackass fan. Not that I'm against it. It just isn't something that I've ever gotten into. So he's been one of those characters where I'm like, I enjoy him, but I'm just not able to get into what he's doing for the most part for the last couple of years, almost really. I'm into what he's doing now with the bloodline. I'm loving it. The lovable loser almost, he wants so badly to be a part of it and can't realize that they don't really want him, but Roman's using him a little bit when the Usos couldn't get into Canada. I would say that I thought we would get that tag title match at Clash at the Castle, but the Usos not getting into Canada kind of makes me wonder if the Usos also maybe can't travel to the UK because Jimmy's got some issues. Let's just say it that way. I don't want to, I was going to be sarcastic and mean, but let's just say Jimmy needs help, and hopefully Jimmy's getting that help. But
Two Spot Monkeys, episode 96, Jimmy's got some issues. The problem is people would think we're talking about you, and that's not true.
Right. Now, I don't have those issues. And I hope he's getting, I hope the fact that he's working regularly means he's getting the help he needs and that sort of thing. But sign me up for that tag match because I think that's going to be awesome. Speaking of Clash of the Castle, I'm assuming we're going to get Gargano Theory there, don't you think?
I would have to imagine. I pull up that card just to kind of, we got 5 formal matches announced, which is actually at this stage, for WWE, what we've been having in the past, like that's a good number, which I would imagine, 2 or 3 more easily can be added in the next, 3 episodes of TV, SmackDown, Raw, SmackDown. So that's exciting. And yeah, Gargano Theory makes a lot of sense. I don't want to speculate on other things too, but it's a good looking card on paper right now, and that's exciting. It sucks that it's happening at noon on a Saturday Eastern time for the primary weekend of college football kickoff, and Labor Day weekend. Like again, this is not listeners. This is not the first time you're going to hear me go, golly, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through Labor Day weekend with all that I want to experience? Oh, woe is me.
Trust me, I've been looking at the idea of like, you have Clash of the Castle at 11 o'clock my time. Later that evening at 8 o'clock my time, you have GCW's The Art of War Games 2, which has a sick looking War Games tag title match and a couple of other matches they've already announced that I'm like, yeah, sign me up. I want to see this. Then on Sunday, you've got Worlds Collide at 3, and then All Out at 6. Probably it'll start my time.
Is Worlds Collide coming to us from the Performance Center?
It must be. They haven't said anything about tickets or anything, so it must be from the NXT Arena or whatever they're calling it now, which would make sense. I don't think that show would sell terribly well if they tried to do it on the road. And it doesn't sound like they're doing it in the UK, because I think you would have wanted to put tickets on sale way before. So yeah, I think it's just from the Performance Center, which is fine. They'll have a good hot crowd there. And now, granted, at least I have Monday be off, so some of what I haven't seen over the weekend I might be able to watch on Monday. But I'm also assuming my wife would like to spend some time with me on Labor Day weekend. So yeah, it's going to be crazy. And there's some other shows that GCW is doing as well that just I'm not even bothering to put on my radar, because I'm like, if I can even get to see these 4, I would be really happy. I'm not 100% sure even that all is going to happen. So, adding in some other stuff that looks interesting just it ain't going to happen. I know that. Oh, and by the way, there's SmackDown on Friday night and Rampage that week too. That might be a week where I don't end up seeing SmackDown, because come Saturday, if I have a chance to actually watch Clash at the Castle, I'll probably just watch Clash at the Castle and not end up watching SmackDown. Or again, pick out if there's something I really need to see that leads into Clash at the Castle. But they're taping that SmackDown actually tonight. So if I wanted to read spoilers and find out, I could. We'll see.
Yeah, and SmackDown tonight is in Detroit, Michigan. And I didn't even realize that until earlier in the week when my future son-in-law shot me a direct message saying, hey, they're giving away tickets if you enter this contest. And I was like, that's great. I can't even go. My daughter has her second cross-country race tonight, and it's an awesome event. It's called Under the Lights. So she actually is not running until 10:30 p.m., which is cool. And the weather will be cool. Her first race on Wednesday, she raced in 87 degrees, and it was the most humid day of the week. So it wasn't a great first high school race, but it's behind us, and so we endeavor forward.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. So WWE is just both. We're both more excited about it. I agree. Clash of the Castle. Yeah, they're going to add at least 3 more. I would say get us to 8 matches. That would make some sense. Gargano Theory makes some sense. There's some other things that make some sense that maybe I don't want to touch on because you still want to see, how the main event plays out. So that may or may not lead to something still. Either U.S. title isn't being defended there. I think that would make some sense to have, and you could do something on Raw, where you have a battle royal or you have a 4-way match or something. The thing I like that Triple H has been doing is making people earn title shots, whether it's the women's title tournament, whether it's the kind of mini tournament they had Ciampa win to get a U.S. title shot, the 5-way match on SmackDown last week, that was an absolute banger. That was great. To get to Sheamus, which I got to be honest, when I saw the 5 people, I was like, Ricochet. They're going to do Ricochet Gunther again. And that'll be really great again. And I hope that this Triple H obviously saw a lot in Ricochet and NXT. So I hope, and it seems like Ricochet is going to get some more shine on the main roster, which is great because I think he's been terribly underutilized, as so many have been on that roster. So I thought Ricochet Gunther would be a really good match. Sheamus probably would have been my 3rd-ish pick. of who I thought might win that match out of the 5. Sammy would have been an option too, just to get him on the card. But Gunther and Sheamus are going to beat the tar out of each other at that show. So I think I will be. Sheamus is really, I mean, he's stepped it up. He's not my favorite wrestler by any means, but he's a hard hitter. So I've come back around on Sheamus. I've kind of gone up and down. I was a big fan of his for a while, and then kind of wasn't. And then I loved him in the bar with Cesaro, and then he kind of floundered there for a little bit. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I don't feel like we've seen Butch since Triple H took over. I know he was in the graphic for the Intercontinental title match, so we'll see. I'm curious if Butch sticks around or if we get back to the Bruiserweight, because that was more Triple H's vision for Pete Dunne, which, yes, please. Yeah. Even if you want to call him Butch, please don't. But if you want to call him Butch, but just turn the character and don't make him the angry leprechaun or whatever in the world that character was that he's been doing. Like, well, he to me, when he just has those like outbursts where they're like, I feel like they're grabbing him by the back of the shirt and he's doing this thing, like, oh, I'm gonna get him. Like, he reminds me of Hornswoggle. That's what it looks like. And part of it is he's standing by 2 enormous guys, and Pete Dunne's not a really big guy to begin with, which is not his fault, obviously. But I don't know. Bruiserweight. Please bring back the Bruiserweight. Anything else on WWE, Tom? I know we
Yeah, no, I'm excited to watch the main event for Raw this week, and then I'm excited to talk about Clash at the Castle and pick those matches next week. Isn't it that venue going to have like 50K plus, maybe 60K?
I think, yeah, it's a pretty big venue. It's a stadium, which those always look cooler.
Yeah, that should be look. That should be fun. That should be fun. Again, when I'm going to watch it. Side note, back to fantasy wrestling scoring. I score next week, and I'm like, holy crap! How am I going to keep this in control?
Well, reach out if you need help.
Yeah.
I'm planning to watch stuff as I can too. So
it's also the first week of like the big, all of the work I've been doing all summer for my job. Like, we kick things off in a formal way next week too. So Monday's a big day.
In Tom's life.
No. Yeah, I got so much time. Just kick back, put my legs up.
We'll see how that goes for you next week, Tom. Yeah, and like you said, it's also like, for a lot of us, that's kickoff weekend of college football. Right about the same time, a lot of games kick off. My Badgers don't play until later in the day next Saturday. When do your Wolverines play? Are they afternoon?
High noon. Yep.
High noon. Yeah, my Badgers don't play till 6. So that could, it's going to be nutso. Nebraska's all aflutter because their first game is actually tomorrow. They're in week 0, what they're calling this year, over in Ireland. So they're looking forward to, everybody's all pumped up for the Huskers out here. Probably to go and get waxed by Northwestern in Ireland, but that's just my opinion as a Badgers fan. So, well, let's pivot over to AEW. We've still got a little bit of time, and we talked a lot about AEW last week, so this might be mostly focused on this week's Dynamite, because we were pretty up to date, I believe, last week, and last week's Rampage, perhaps. I don't remember if anything super impressive happened on last week's Rampage.
No, but it was a fun show, and it was a good show to focus on the multiple personalities and other talents. So I think more of Rampages,
not schizophrenia, by the way. We weren't talking about that.
Yeah, but more of Rampages like that, where you get, I think there were 5 matches. Like, and so you get more options at the buffet. I don't know why I always want to default food compared.
Well, and you get more character. I now that you're saying that, it clicks with me a little more. You get more character development, more, why should I care about these people? And I think that's good when they do that. I like that, like on Dynamite this week, in between the world title match, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the trios tournament match, they had that little video on Kenny Omega. Like, he didn't have to appear on the show, but they just reminded you, hey, Kenny came back last week and you're going to see him next week anyways. And here's why you should be excited about that. For anybody, maybe there are people who've picked up, I'm sure there are, into AEW that haven't been watching from the beginning. So they might not know what a big deal Kenny Omega is. But hey, here's why it was a big deal. He came back, and you should be really excited to see this guy in the ring. although he didn't look like the best bout machine last week. But Sean Ross Sapp brought up, and I think he's 100% right. I was kind of thinking it too. Like, that's part of the story, is that he's not quite back, and then you're going to see him eventually get back, and then at some point there's going to be a match where he loses that shirt and the brace and everything, and the best bout machine is back, and we're off and running.
And forgive me if we talked about this, but I don't feel like we did. There was that spot with the dive with Dragon Lee when Omega was braced up on the guardrail on the outside. Like, that was bananas. I don't think we talked about it. I wanted to.
You brought it up briefly, but
okay, that was just that spot still lives in my brain. I'm just like, holy cow, how amazing, athletic, dangerous, expletive.
Right. Well, and even at the end, I know we said we're going to talk about this week, but at the end of last week's show, like, Kenny getting Dragon Lee up for the one-winged angel, like, it was rough getting him up there. And I don't know if Dragon Lee wasn't able to help as much, or if he was dead weight a little bit, or what was going on, but it was rough looking. Part of me thinks it was supposed to be a little rough looking too, though. Like, I can definitely, Kenny's a smart guy. Kenny knows what story Kenny wants to tell. So I can see him telling a I'm not quite there. Okay, now I'm there. And, then we really get into Kenny Omega. I'm excited for it, though. This week, Crazy Good Rampage. How about we call it Dynamite? Crazy Good Dynamite started off with a really good, maybe I won't say really good, a good promo battle, I guess, between Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, and Daniel Garcia. We didn't get the payoff here yet. We still have Garcia being torn. So, as you and I have joked about, the Danielson Jericho match at All Out might be turned into Daniel Garcia on a pole. We'll see. But I like the angst that Garcia is feeling, and I think we all know where it's going, but that's okay. Sometimes you can, like, sometimes the right thing to do is the right thing to do. Like, it's the obvious thing to do, but it's also the thing that makes the most sense. I'm still not, like, super excited about a Jericho Danielson match, but I know it'll be good. And I think that was kind of how you were feeling a little bit last week, Tom, too. What was after this promo, were you more excited for Jericho Danielson, or maybe you were excited? I don't remember.
Yeah, so I think I was excited, and if I wasn't, I am very excited. I mean, I'm super high on Jericho, and I literally, like, for a number of years, like, Jericho wasn't, like, in my top 10, and it's hard to say he's in my top 10 now, but, like, I have so much respect for his career and the longevity. So my opinion on Chris Jericho with the arc of his career has changed. And I think that this last chapter, or whatever the final chapters in AEW will be for him, cement an amazing legacy where he will be considered as one of the more impactful, influential, meaningful pro wrestlers in the legacy of pro wrestling. I'm going to give you my one criticism of the promo segment, and that is Jericho was pretty early on saying that he needed Garcia to apologize, and then I felt like that detail got lost in the back and forth. I feel like that really should have been a point of, like, Jericho, like, reiterating, all I need is an apology, Daniel. All and it, in the same breath, like, depending on how he delivers that, he can be either condescending, which I think that's kind of how it started, or it could be like people begin to go, you know what, actually Jericho's right, and then it turns in babyface, which is not what they want to do here. I just felt like that, to me, as I watched that segment play out, that was an early kind of like, and this is what I need, this is the action I need of you, and here's how I need you to respond. And then it was an important detail. It's an important part of the story, I think, that got caught up in everything else that went on. So I didn't like that. Everything else I loved.
Yeah, I thought it worked. I actually missed the shove the first time and had to rewind to go kind of see how that played out. Because I heard him say, "Oh, he shoved him down," and I just looked away, and was like, of course, turn away the moment something interesting happens. So that worked. I think it'll be interesting to see Garcia gets involved at the match. The bummer of this to me is I think it means we're not getting a Daniel Garcia match at the pay-per-view, because I think he is somehow involved. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be somewhere along the lines of like Jericho wants him to interfere or hit Brian with a chair, and he either doesn't, and Jericho gets mad and that leads to the finish, or he ends up hitting Jericho or something like that. So some sort of thing around that is kind of where I'm leaning right now. Unless Garcia's in the casino ladder match, that would be a cool spot for him. But they haven't even begun to talk about how they're going to fill that. Maybe they're just going to tell us who's all in it. Or maybe it'll be a surprise. Who knows? Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought there were a lot of other good things. Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed getting set up was good. I think that'll
it kind of felt a little rushed for me.
More than a little. It was very rushed.
Yeah.
But I feel like they didn't really set anything up for him. So I'm just glad we're getting a tag title match. And it's not a 3-way, because they kind of fell into a rut there for a little while where it was like every time they had a pay-per-view, it's like, we'll put a 3-way tag match on there. So I'm kind of glad it's just at least a 2-on-2. The pivot in the 6-man, which kind of came out of nowhere, and I had to laugh when Sanjay Dutt is like, I never told you who his partners were going to be. Go back and watch the promo. He clearly said Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt. He did. But okay, you pivoted, and you took out the two guys I care least about in that match, in Dutt and Satnam Singh. I guess they're going to save the powerbomb, because, like, in my mind, that 6-man was set up so that Wardlow would powerbomb Satnam Singh. Like, that was the whole point of the 6-man. Not that he couldn't still do it, but now it seems a little less. It's not a match, I guess, if it happens now. But Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns, so you're going to get the Motor City Machine Guns and FTR in the same ring? Yep, yeah. I just got way more excited. Remember how I hated that match last week? I still don't love that FTR is not just in a straight tag match. Like, FTR versus the Motor City Machine Guns straight up would be awesome. And Wardlow versus Jay Lethal would make sense. I won't say it would be awesome. If it were for the TNT title, that would make more sense. Like, I'd rather them split this into 2 matches. But I'm going to get the Motor City Machine Guns and FTR in the same ring. So, cool. Like, I'm in. And I hope that leads to maybe, Motor City Machine Guns aren't signed to AEW. Chris Sabin is signed to Impact Wrestling. And Alex Shelley is actually a free agent, so he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I was hoping we were getting Shelley back when they ran Blood and Guts, because they were in Detroit. I'm like, it's like an easy plug and play. And when that didn't happen, I wasn't disappointed. I was like, okay, well, maybe next time. So
and
now
that he's going back to GCW, and is he working?
Blake Christian,
that's right.
Yeah, and I'm still holding out hope based on the last GCW show in Detroit in June, that when they return in October, they're at the big. I'm gonna assume they're gonna be at the bigger concert hall venue, and they were teasing last time Nick Wayne and Jordan Oliver versus Shelley and Sabin. So
they seem to be building Wayne and Oliver a little bit as a tag team in GCW. So I'm kind of liking that. I haven't seen a lot of it, but just the way it sounds and looks, and some of the matches they're getting. I wish I could see more GCW. Somebody could put more hours in the day. That would be hours in the day and dollars in my pocket. That's kind of what I need more of both right now. So
you bring up with the pivot here and the addition of Motor City Machine Guns and Dutt's promo, and then what had happened previously. I'm wondering, because my connection to this as well is when they showed the graphic for the next trios tournament match tonight, the 3 members of Dark Order, there was a grayed out member. Right. And originally in the first graphic, that wasn't the case.
No,
and so terrible. I don't know of a dark or dark elevation angle that has led to that change. It wasn't named on Wednesday, but it's those minor details, like the Sanjay Dutt thing. The you get a graphic with this, and then the next time you get a graphic, it's changed without explanation. Those are things that I think like AW is not being called to task for. And they're not like make or break things, right? Like and I think, as we'll see tonight, because I don't know the spoilers, but I know we talked a lot about what our opinion was last week, what your opinion and what I kind of co-signed on regarding Dark Order. Those are all like fans win in the end, but from like a transparency standpoint up front, it appears that like, saying this and then doing this, like that only lasts for so long before you burn the trust.
Well, and even it wasn't called out why it was. And even when they were running through the Rampage card and next week's Dynamite card there at the end of the show, like they always do before the main event, they just said House of Black versus Dark Order in the trios tournament. They didn't say Dark Order and John Silver and Alex Reynolds need to find a third partner, or like there was nothing. It was just like that was always the team. And like you said, it wasn't. And yeah, if there was an angle, I'm unaware of it to take 10 out, or if he's been injured, I'm unaware of it. Like they didn't call that out. So I agree. There are those things they still need to tighten up. And that's where like, and I don't know what his setup is, although it sounds like it's kind of Tony for the most part. But like Tony could use somebody, we used to talk about in WWE, like a continuity director or a continuity manager or something who can be that person who isn't necessarily trying to come up with the storylines, but is just the person to sit back and go, okay, so if you do that, we had done this a week ago. How do we tie that together? Or you can't really do that without some explanation because all of a sudden, this. Which brings me to the world title. We had our world title unification match. You and I last week both thought it was going to be some sort of a schmaz, DQ, somebody interferes, something like that, some sort of draw, some sort of inconclusive finish that leads us then to Punk Mox at the pay-per-view. That was not what happened. Jon Moxley wiped the frickin' floor with CM Punk and treated him like the Road Warriors treated the Mulkey Brothers back in 1986. What was that? What it was my friggin' fantasy wrestling league team going down the toilet again. I've lost more titles this year than I care to talk about, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I like where it was positioned on the card. I was intrigued when they early on in the night said, in our main event tonight will be Death Triangle versus Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. And I don't know how much time we're going to have to get to that match, but yeah, I'd like to watch that match again because I watched it and I had it most of my attention on it, but at times I was distracted by things. Like I would really like to take the 30 minutes or whatever it was and just sit and just watch that because that was friggin' phenomenal. Not that we'd expect anything less from those 6 gentlemen, but what was your thought as you watched? I know we both saw the world title match without having been spoiled, which is great. What was your thought? What was going on, Tom?
So I was really surprised. I was really surprised when, and again, and yes, he wiped the floor with Punk, but it took an injury and 3 finishers. So it definitely opens up, if they want to make Punk sympathetic, they can. If Punk comes back and goes, you know what, I came back too early and you fans don't care, and now he turns heel. Okay, that there's money and there's motivation there. Yeah, it's crazy. And even the promo that Mox cut after that, I think it was like 1 or 2 segments after the match. Like it just like very like fired up and fueled up. And I know tonight they've already said on Twitter that we're gonna get backstage stuff with Punk and comments or something to that effect. So I'm excited to see that. And
which good use of Rampage, by the way.
Yeah.
Good use of you had a major angle happen on Wednesday, and we're going to follow up with it on Friday instead of just saying tune in next Wednesday in Dynamite, which just tells you Rampage isn't important, and they've done that a few times. Good use of Rampage to do this. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. And so I was stunned. So like I know we didn't know what we didn't know, and things change because Mox has momentum, and Mox has been amazing this summer. The summer of Moxley has been awesome, right? And again, Punk winning and then having an injury, just a really bad timing. But how do you then shift that to make more money and tell more stories? Who knows? Who knows what was, is, or will be the plan? All I know is like being in the moment and along for the ride right now. I'm like, wow, this is cool. Like sometimes, and again, you and I both know, we like to prognosticate. We like to go, I could see, or I wonder if. I don't know, and I don't know what if here. So let me just buckle up and sit back and enjoy.
So let me ask you this: sitting here at whatever time in the morning on a Friday morning, do you think we're getting Punk Moxley at the pay-per-view next week? And if not, and your answer to this, to number one, doesn't like I'd still love to hear your answer to number two regardless. Do you think we're getting Punk Moxley? If we get Punk Moxley, that's the main event. Duh. But if they don't, let's say Punk maybe he did come back, like maybe in real life he did come back too soon, and maybe that's why they did the quick match and he's going to need to go away again for a little bit. Hypotheticals. What then would you have main event the pay-per-view if it's not Punk Mox? And yet I'm like, they're going to have to tell me a good story to get back to Punk Mox because Moxley wiped the freaking floor with him, even with an injury.
I have to think that world, that is our world title match at All Out. It's crazy to think based on what happened, unless Punk was faking out, right? Like, why would he do that unless he's turning heel? And we would need to know more. And when you look at the promo the week before and what led to this happening so quickly, like it's just a lot to digest and a lot to take in. I don't see anyone else that I can just name off the top of my head being the challenger for Moxley right now. I'm sure if I gave it a little bit more thought and I kind of looked at the roster and thought about TV a little bit differently, I could come up with something. I can't right now. So that's why I go, it has to be Moxley and Punk. The other part of that is that's Chicago. That's CM Punk territory. Like, so, like, did they do what they did Wednesday to get us to All Out, to give the opportunity to have Punk have a hometown revalidation, if that even makes sense? Or, and that's, and if he's going heel, like the only, maybe not the most apt comparison, but the thing I default to is like, he'll be like Bret Hart in 97 in Canada that night, but then everywhere else that he goes, he'll be like Bret Hart in the United States in 97. So, yeah. And then to the other question, based on the card I'm seeing right now, the only other match that I think could be the main event would be the Trios Tournament Finals.
Right. And if that were to happen, if you had John Silver and Alex Reynolds on your AEW main eventing a pay-per-view bingo card for 2022, congratulations. Because I don't think anybody had that. And I like John Silver and Alex Reynolds, but just let's be honest, they have not been presented as main eventers. And you could have them win 2 matches to get to that title match. And to me, they still would not feel like main eventers. Now, maybe they're going to have a main eventer as their third member. We've talked about that. It sure seems like it could go that way. Neither of us have read the spoilers for tonight and don't want to know because we've made it this far. So why not wait an extra 12 hours and find out? But yeah, I part of me is like, they can't do Punk Mox again after that, but I'll let them tell the story and maybe they can make it make sense for me, because it almost seems like they have to. The only name that could show up on like Wednesday night, like if Mox comes out, let's say Punk can't work or isn't working or whatever happens and he's not doing the pay-per-view. The only name that if Mox walked out there and was like, and now there's nobody who can challenge me for this, the only 2 names that would make any sense, like a little bit, would be if you did a Blackpool Combat Club member versus Mox, i.e. Claudio. But I don't think I'd do that because you don't want to beat Claudio at this point. I think you're still building Claudio as the Ring of Honor World Champion, so I don't think you want to do that. Or MJF. I mean, that would be the guy who's out there who could show up at some point. But again, if you want to go simply on the rankings, now he could say Tony Khan was, gave me a title shot to get me to come back or something like that. But the last time we saw him in the ring, he got absolutely waxed by Wardlow. So he hasn't done anything to earn a title shot. He's not in the top 5 rankings because we haven't seen him since the Dynamite after that happened. But he's the only name that I could see that people would be like, oh, crap, he's back. He could. But again, I don't know if I want to do that with 4 days notice. Like, I feel like you could build to that a lot better if you were going to do that. So that's the only name that I've thought of that, like, if they were going to do something like that, could work. I still wouldn't think it was the right call. But for me, they're going to have to tell me a story at least as to why Punk deserves a title shot on next Sunday. Yes, there was an injury. I understand that, but hey, it's pro wrestling. Sorry, pal. But I mean, he just got smashed. It wasn't a flash roll up. It wasn't a nothing. He got butt kicked. And that happens sometimes. And I like when they do things like that. For instance, the Goldberg Lesnar match, at Survivor Series a number of years ago, where Goldberg beat Lesnar in like 20 seconds or whatever it was. Like, there's a UFC-ish quality to that, because you never know. Like, if you buy a UFC pay-per-view, I used to buy a lot of them. I haven't bought one in years now. But I used to buy a lot of them, and you never knew that main event you were really looking forward to might go 5 rounds, might be 25 minutes, and it might go 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. And, there used to be people get mad about that. Well, I paid $60 and, there's match lasts 26. Well, hey, somebody got knocked out or tapped out or whatever. Hey, it happens. So I like when I almost said WWE, when wrestling companies do things like that sometimes. So this could be that. But then you still, in the UFC world, if you get knocked out in 20 seconds, you probably don't get the next match, for the title. You got to go win a match or two. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they play it out, especially if they are going back to Punk Mox. How do they make it make sense? But I'll give them the chance to do it because they've earned that in my eyes. I mean, I enjoy the product so much that, all right, let's see. Can you do it? You probably can. I mean, they can probably come up with a way. All right, I'm in. Yep, you sold me. Yeah, I didn't think I could do it, but you sold me. Yeah, the trios title would be the only other thing I would agree to on that second question. Now with the women's title going to an interim, and I hate them doing interim titles, but whatever, it is what it is. So who's your interim women's champ? Let's just and I realize we're going to do picks next week, so I don't mean to just make you reveal, but with the caveat that you can change this between now and next week's pick. Who are you, like, when you see those 4 women, what's your initial thought?
Yeah, so it's got to be either Toni Storm or Britt Baker, and I probably am leaning towards like Toni Storm more so in that way. So here's I think another flaw with AEW, specifically in the women's division. And this may be applicable to the world title and TNT title as well. I just haven't thought about it in that sense, and I don't feel like it's as like fractured. Athena is a great example of someone who probably should be considered for the world title. And Athena never is mentioned because she seemed connected at the hip to a path to Jade Cargill, and that's been from day one.
I kind of think we're getting that all out, by the way.
And I agree, but why? Why is the TBS title, nothing against it, why is that the motivation for Athena and not the world title? And especially in a spot like this, like, acknowledging that, whatever the announcement and then the follow-up happened pretty quickly. Did we need to know that? Did we need to know the competitors on Wednesday night? I argue that we didn't. I argue that you could have easily gone off the air and said, hey, we're going to have a 4-way if that's your decision, and we're going to have an interim. And definitely Toni Storm was already going to challenge, so she's in there, but we're going to identify who the next best 3 are in the next week, right? Give me some more reason to tune back in, or give people who are focused on this division specifically, because there are fans who specifically just, I believe, want to follow the women's division. You gave them the cow and the milk and the farm on Wednesday.
Well, that's interesting. I was trying to pull up the rankings, and their last rankings are August 10th. Come on, AEW. What would it be? August 24th would be what we'd be looking for.
See, I thought you said my comment about the cow, the milk, and the farm was interesting, but I'm glad that you added the context that you were looking at the rankings.
Yes. Okay, so August 24th, here are the rankings for the women. Toni Storm, number 1, so she's in the 4-way. Britt Baker, number 2, she's in the 4-way. Athena, number 3, not in the 4-way. Anna Jay, number 4, not the 4-way. And Jamie Hayter, number 5, in the 4-way. So how does Shida get in over, maybe if Athena's going for the TBS title, the easy way to say why Athena's not in that 4-way is to, right before you do the Thunder Rosa angle, you announce Jade Cargill and Athena for the TBS title.
Yeah.
So then when you do it, you say, and Athena would have been in it, but she's already got the TBS title shot and she wants to get her hands on Jade Cargill. So she declined the option for the 4-way and wants to get her hands on Jade Cargill. Okay, fine. I can, again, why would she want the shot at the TBS over the world? But she does have this ongoing thing with Jade Cargill. So if you just say, well, she wants to get her hands on Jade Cargill, all right, at least you give me a reason. That's cool. Anna Jay is going to choke somebody out because she ain't in that 4-way. So she should be on Rampage or on Dynamite in the next week and say, hey, I'm the number 4 ranked wrestler and I wasn't put into that 4-way. And I'm going to choke out whoever did that. Let her make that part of her story then. We'll see. Maybe they will. But interesting that they didn't just choose the top 4 or 4 of the top 5 at least for that match. So interesting. Anything else AEW related? We saw the return of Kip Sabian, who's going after Pac.
Yeah, and that was building, I think, on Dark Elevation. Like he had been in the crowd during his title defenses. There was a couple title defenses over in the UK, and they were again, and those are extra shows. They are important in the lexicon, right? Because they use those to build to the big things, Rampage, Dynamite, and the pay-per-views. But not everybody watches those, as you and I have discussed before. So, if someone was mad that happened on Wednesday, but didn't have the context, and I think I and you probably have more context because at least if we're not watching them, we're maybe like perusing results as we're scoring them for fantasy wrestling. So we have that general awareness that even if you're a diehard, but you're not watching those, then you wouldn't have. Like only a true diehard would probably be able to make that connection.
Right.
That being said, that main event, regardless of that interaction, which I thought was impactful and important, because if that's the match we get at the pay-per-view as well, add to the good. That match was amazing. That 6-man was bananas. And here's the thing. United Empire won, and now it's United Empire and the Elite next week. How in the ever-loving world will they top it? That's rhetorical, because I do feel they will top it. And I'm like, how blessed are we? How blessed by the pro wrestling athleticism spirits, gods, whatever you prefer, that we're getting these free every Wednesday night.
Well, and how in the ever-loving world, and I assume it's because maybe Ospreay is needed. I'm looking through the cards really quick here for the second, third. Nope. New Japan starts a new tour Labor Day weekend over in Japan. The finals of this tournament, as good as they could be, will pale in comparison to the Dynamite side of the ledger. I mean, that's the tournament. I'm sorry. Like the finals is just who gets to lose to whoever wins between United Empire and the Elite. You and I both believe that's going to be the Elite. Because we made our pick last week, and spoiler, I don't see that changing. I mean, unless United Empire somehow wins, they have them win that match, which would shock the world on Wednesday night and would be really interesting in a lot of ways, because I think it's a foregone conclusion for everybody that the Elite are winning. It would be really interesting for them to do that, to pivot, but coincidentally, on Saturday, September 3rd, just scrolling real quick here. Yeah, William Ospreay does not appear early on that tour for New Japan. So he's at least potentially available for the pay-per-view. So who knows, maybe something else happens. I hope if Ospreay's available, he's on that card in Chicago next weekend, whether it isn't a shock in the trios title for tournament finals or just wrestling somebody, put him against Pentagon or Phoenix. I don't care. Like, that'd be fun. So yeah, AEW, really fun. WWE has become fun. Wrestling, yay, at this point, is what I'm saying. Tom, anything else you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I hope I can watch a lot of wrestling in the next week, so we have a rich conversation. And we're gonna come back next week. We're, as you said, and as we talked about on the intro, 3 events to pick. So lots of conversation around those. Next week probably will be a long episode. I better go block off time on my calendar now.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. Yeah, next week will be a big episode of 3 Pick'ems. The week after, we'll be talking, obviously, a reaction to those shows, as well as making some NFL picks, because we like to pivot for a week right around the NFL start and pick our Bears and Lions to be in the NFC Championship game against each other. So, okay, spoiler alert, we're probably not going to do that. Maybe Tom will, but I love my Bears.
I'm not going to tip my cap any direction today.
Don't see that. And I think your Lions will be better, but yeah, a lot of good teams in the NFC. But we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. So come on back and see us next week. Listen to us, talk to us. You can always talk to us. You can chat. You can send us messages on Twitter, or we're at 2 Spot Monkeys. We have an email, 2spotmonkeys@gmail.com. Feel free to send in any questions, thoughts, whatever. We'd love to chat about those kinds of things too. If there's ever something you want to hear us talk about, we'd love to hear that. So everybody stay safe. Have a great week. Like Tom said, watch a whole bunch of wrestling and enjoy it. And we'll be back next week at 2 Spot Monkeys Live.